Everybody, just wait until we have at least a quorum, just so we can. I think we got it now. Okay, cool. So just a second. All right, I think that should do it. So welcome. This is the December 2024 meeting of Advisor Neighborhood Commission 1C, the last of the calendar year, the last of this term for the ANC. Welcome everyone that's here tonight. We don't really have a too extensive of meeting, so we can try to be efficient without, overlooking things that need to be discussed. So we'll call this meeting to order. First, start with the introduction of commissioners. Trying to see if there's a pattern to the numbers of SMDs here. Not really. I guess we'll start with 1CO2.
Hi, I'm Lee Dixon. I represent 1CO2, which is Colorama Triangle, the wedge between Columbia Road Northwest and Connecticut Avenue Northwest.
Hi, I'm Peter Wood. I represent 1C03. It's 18th to 19th, Biltmore to Wyoming.
Hey there, Commissioner Joe Van Wy. I represent 1CO4, the northwest corner of the commission, 18th in Columbia, northwest of that.
I am Commissioner Stevens. I represent 1C05, and that's Adams Mill to Columbia, to Ontario, to 18th, to Harvard, and back to Adams Mill.
Hi, Commissioner Laughlin. I'm 1C06, the eastern side of Adams Morgan on the other side of Lanier Heights.
Hi all, Commissioner Jake Valaschini, 1CO7, which is the heart of Adams Morgan, 18th to 17th, Florida up to Columbia. That's the last time I'm going to get to say that as an elected commissioner.
We can change the analogy next year to, like, I don't know, an industrial machine or something. 1CO1.
Hi, I'm Daniel Michelson Horowitz. I represent the southern end of the neighborhood, the tip of the spear, attacking DuPont Circle, if you will. It's bounded by Florida Avenue on the south, Wyoming on the north, and then 18th on the east, and Columbia and Connecticut on the west.
All right, so thanks everyone. Like I said, this is our last meeting of the year, so we'll try to hold back the tears. But starting with officer announcements. Chair announcement. One thing, occasionally some people will ask how many people come to meetings, so we can think of a way going forward, a way to do that. But I think right now, including everyone on this, something like 16 plus YouTube viewers. It varies by meeting. Also, the format makes it hard to come up with numbers like that, because the disadvantage to having it more open is that people will spam the meeting. I've seen pornography been shared and I've seen people get harassed. So there's a discussion around the city for why meetings are not always completely transparent to the same degree of being able to see people in a room. There's a lot of advantages and disadvantages. That's why we host in-person events that are not voting things, but we'll discuss that more in the next term for those of us returning here today. Really just one chairperson announcement I make is how much of a pleasure it's been working with everyone the last 2 years. It's been, I think, a really good group, and I think we've got a lot of good things done, and I hope that you've all learned a lot. I know I have, and I'll miss a lot of you, at least in this capacity, and also wish you the best, that those of you who get to rest, hopefully will be able to take that opportunity. So yeah, I appreciate that, and looking forward to what comes next as well. We don't have a treasurer here tonight. He said he might not make it. So how about Secretary Falskini?
Sure. We have a normal meeting schedule for December, which means that ABC and Public Safety will be next Wednesday on the 11th at 7 p.m. on Zoom. The 18th would be our final PCT committee meeting of the year, but that's going to get taken down. And the what would be the Public Services and the Environment Committee meeting on the 25th is also going to be taken down, given that that's also a holiday. So that's the meeting schedule for the rest of the calendar year. And then in January, one of the first things the new ANC will do is adopt a schedule for all of 2025. And so that will go around to the neighborhood as soon as it's adopted. It will go up on the website. But I think folks should at least anticipate that the first ANC meeting of the year will be on Wednesday. Oh, actually, I'm looking and seeing that Wednesday is January 1st. So the first Wednesday will be January 1st.
Yeah, so on the consent agenda, I put an item 2, just because of the timing of that being before the new officers will actually be sworn in. We could just shift it a week. So I think that's the simplest. Yeah. Just to confirm, ABC's meeting next week, is that right?
We do have one item on the agenda, and then we also got a modification of a cannabis license just a couple days ago that we should probably add on as well. So yeah, we may as well do it and get it done. So it's in by January.
Appreciate all that. Vice Chairman Y, you have anything? I know you helped a bit with the what's it called? Jesus. The annual report. I should have mentioned that as well. We came with an annual report. We didn't have to actually, I learned we don't have to vote on approving an annual report just because it's just literally taking from past minutes that were already approved. So we did that. I appreciate the help with that, Commissioner.
Of course, no, it was, thank you for spearheading that and getting that done. Nothing to report from the vice chair's position. I guess I will also just say this is my last vice chair's report. I won't be returning to ANC next year. And I just do want to say it has been a real pleasure to serve with all of you and to represent the ANC 1C04. Yeah, a really, really excellent experience, and can't wait to keep working with you all to better Adams Morgan.
Yeah, thank you so much. The sentiment is shared. I'll keep it brief for now. So individual commissioners and committee chair reports. What order should we go in? Because it doesn't matter. Reverse order 1C07, back to you, Commissioner Foskini.
For neighborhood report, we continue to have a lot of construction in 1C07 and just continue to appreciate everyone's patience. We have received a request for longer work hours at the construction project on Calorama, the Jubilee construction project on Calorama. It's all going to be indoors, nothing on the outdoors. There's only one neighboring building, and it will not be exceptionally loud. So we're going to submit an approval of that to allow some extended work hours on that site to get it all done as quickly as possible, so we get the neighborhood back to not having that second construction project there on Calorama. The Pepco project on Ontario continues. Thank you to everyone for patience with that. We're hoping that'll be at least done on Ontario Road, and we'll switch over to being directly on site on the Pepco site, but no longer on the street by the next school year. So, there's still a lot going on. Really appreciate everyone's patience. And then several construction projects along Champlain Street. And yes, I have made several 311 requests for the couches and sofa that are in the little pocket park on Calorama and Champlain to be removed. They still remain. I'm very sorry. I flagged it for the council member and for DPW, and it is still there 2 months later. I will continue to try to get it removed. That is it for my updates. And it's been a pleasure serving you all. 3.5 years. Really enjoyed it. Secretary, ABC, PCT. It's been super fun. And thank you for your trust and for letting me do this for 3.5 years. And I look forward to going back and just being an ordinary citizen for a while. Ordinary citizen who files way too many 311 complaints, because now that's in my blood.
Appreciate it, Commissioner. Commissioner Laughlin.
No major updates. I will note, and I don't know if when DDOT is here later, if we can discuss a couple other items with them, but so Ontario Road between Columbia Road and Lanier is now a one-way street, but the signage has not been great. So only on one side, it doesn't indicate that there's a change in the structure and direction of the road. So I know some constituents have reached out to Kevin Harrison, and I have as well. And then there's also an alleyway that dumps onto that street, and the garbage trucks are clearly still going the direction they usually would go, which is now against the one way. So we just need some better signage over there. And I heard the notes about it, and I'm sending in requests because it is a little bit confusing over there. But otherwise, it's looking good, and I think it'll just take some time for us to get used to it. And that's all I have.
Okay, so I have the same concern as Commissioner Laughlin. So if I can help in any way, Commissioner Laughlin, contact DDOT, Kevin, or whomever, let me know. One thing about that, just real quick, when I see, how do I describe this? Many of the comments that I got from my constituents of my SMD were basically, especially for the one-way street situation, they were asking, is it permanent? And I had a conversation with Kevin about that, and he said, well, basically nothing's permanent. And especially something like that, because it's just a matter of signage and pavement painting and stuff like that. So, I mean, if things go awry and horribly, they can always switch it back, but not to say they should. I think right now, like you said, it's more a matter of signage and making the signage clear, and then things will work properly. And we can see how it's going, and hopefully it'll work out for the best. So anyway, but like I said, if you need assistance, let me know. And other than that, it's just very quiet around here. And it's also my last term, and I have mixed feelings. It was wonderful. Thank you, all my constituents, for putting their trust in me, and to all of you, I've really enjoyed working with you. We haven't always seen eye to eye, but that's okay. I think we were a great mix of different viewpoints and skill sets and all that. And it's a shame that we're breaking up the band, but it is what it is. But I'll still be in there to help the community, especially when it comes to the blighted buildings. I have some things in the works I'm going to talk to Commissioner Wood about. And so I'll still be involved, and you may see me on your meetings from time to time as it pertains to the older buildings and vacant and blighted properties. So thank you, everyone.
Drew, and why? You're on mute.
Yeah, I was trying to get to the unmute button, but was struggling a little bit. No real updates from my SMD this week. A
Yeah,
lot of time finding the unmute button to just say that.
appreciate it. 103, similar. I mean, there's a lot of things going on. One of them is an agenda item that is important for a lot of the neighborhood, the Columbia Road bus priority project, and the notice of intent for a potential loading zone. But beyond that, I mean, the 1846, 1840 Calorama Road construction. I know that some people have raised issues with parking spots for the construction workers, things like that. I think that that's getting looked at. I'm not sure, but in general, that's a project that we've supported, and it seems to be going well. So kind of with the theme of a lot of construction going on in the neighborhood. And then hopefully, I'm not sure of the timeline yet, but hopefully hearing from DPR at some point to learn about the implementation of funds for erosion mitigation in Calorama Park on 19th Street. That's one of the things that hopefully will start happening in the near future. We'll see. They said that once they start communicating, that it'll be good communication. I think they're just planning that as well as a few other things for the area. So when I learn about it, we'll let people know. 1CO2, want to go ahead?
I have no I have no updates in my SMD, but I just want to say it was lovely working with you all and serving the neighborhood together, and I wish you all the best.
Appreciate that. 1CO1.
Just a few things. Next Wednesday at 5 o'clock, the school improvement team for Oyster Adams will be meeting for a construction update. So if you want to join that, please let me know or write to our DCPS contact. And of course, the slides and the recording will go on the DCPS school improvement page. And I've gotten some reports from neighbors about package theft. If that happens to you, please let me know. The documenting it is important for resources. And as for the construction in the school, please keep reaching out if you have any concerns, as well as with the any of the signage or implementation or changes to the bus priority project. And if it wasn't flagged already, there's a new contact at DDOT for the future bus priority project on U Street, which adjoins our neighborhood. So if you want that person's contact, you can reach out. That is all, and I'll just echo the comments. It's been great working with all of you. I'll be staying on, but I will miss those who are not. It's been a really great team, and I appreciate you showing me the ropes as I came in midterm. Yeah, looking forward to seeing you around the neighborhood, of course, and staying in touch. Thank you.
Likewise, looks like we have Commissioner Jones that joined us as well. So Commissioner, if you're ready, introduction, SMD update.
Can you hear me?
And
You can hear me?
floor is all yours.
Okay, yeah, no, I am sorry for being a little late.
Good.
I had to deal with my mom. For my SMD, nothing no particular update. I haven't been there for a month, so and I spoke with Peter about it. But so I don't really have anything on the ground, an update as such. And nothing except that the only thing I can note, of course, is the progression of the DOT improvement or alteration of the street on Columbia Road between 17th and 16th. And I mean, it's proceeding. What else can I say?
I can add to that just because like a few minutes ago I biked through there at your SMD and they're painting the bus lane red and it does not smell great just because paint doesn't smell great while it's wet. But yeah.
Yeah, but I must say though, on that, it's difficult for me to imagine that the traffic turning the corner from Columbia Road going toward Harvard is going to be less than a headache at after hour and before work, but particularly when people get off the after hour work time. But at any rate, it's proceeding along.
Appreciate the update. Good to hear from you. And that's commissioner updates. Now turn to public announcements and comments. If you're here for the one item, assuming none of the consent agenda items get moved off, if you're here for that, please wait until we get to that item to discuss that. Otherwise, you're welcome to share your thoughts, of course. Let's go in order of hands raised. It looks like Mr. Fenty is up first. Welcome.
Hello, can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can. How are you doing?
I'm doing all right. How are you guys?
Cold.
Yeah, same. Honestly, recovering from a cold. I grew up in Adams Morgan. I live and function in Adams Morgan, and I have just wondered. You guys talk about it. Talk about the Rapid Bus Project lightly, as though the neighborhood seems to support it, or I'm just wondering, have you spoken to anybody that actually lives in the neighborhood? Are you guys DC natives? I'm just wondering like what your actual relationship to the neighborhood is, what your history with it is. Have you not heard that these businesses have been complaining that there are no parking spots for their business? Is any of this resonating with you all, or is this the feedback you're getting? I'm sorry, I don't attend too many of these meetings, and I haven't been made aware of whatever forums have been available for the public. This is only my second that I've attended, and just in regard to this issue. Has your general consensus, so my question is, has your general consensus about the project been positive, for one? And what are the positive aspects that you all see since the construction's nearly done?
Appreciate the thoughts. There's a couple hands up. I'll just quickly say my perspective. It's been really divided. I mean, we've been talking about this as a commission officially for I think over 2 years. And some people, like half the neighborhood seems to be very much in favor, not 40% very much in favor, 40% very opposed, and 20% some sort of mix of apathetic or indifferent. But that's just my take. Commissioner Fauskini, I see your hands up, then Commissioner Laughlin, if you want to respond.
Yeah, I'd say in the lead up to this, I probably received about 60% of constituent feedback was in favor of this project, 60 to 70%, and that generally reflected what DDOT got back from the community as well. Since this has gone forward, I'd say that somewhere around 60 to 7% of the feedback that I've gotten has mostly been positive around this.
Who are you guys, not to interrupt you, who are you all asking exactly as well? Like how do you conduct the surveys?
DDOT sent surveys out all over the neighborhood, but most of mine are in just conversations with my constituents. And I've lived in the neighborhood in the same place for 11 years. Part of my district is on Columbia Road. Several of the folks that I represent are there. At one point, about 2 years ago, I did a survey that I sent out to all the folks on my email list, which is pretty substantial. I represent a few thousand people. I've got, several hundred people on my email list from walking doors and talking to my neighbors and soliciting those. And a vast majority of those that came back were in favor and were positive. Yeah.
And
I mean,
what are like, yeah, I know we don't have a lot of time. I'm just curious if you could voice like any of the actual, more like detailed, specific responses that you've gotten, why they're in support of it, what their experience has been.
Yeah, I'm more than happy to talk about that. We're in the middle of the project, so I don't think it's, anything.
I mean, it's already like significantly affecting traffic flow, as you can see. I don't know if you've like actually stood out in the middle of Columbia Road at any point during the day, but I've done it and recorded traffic, and it's a mess.
So I've
someone that bikes around. I bike around DC. I'm not currently owning a car, and it's a disaster for people that are trying to make deliveries, and then incoming traffic that goes into the other lane. And I know DDOT is talking about now eliminating another portion of the only spots that are left on the business side as opposed to the non-business side.
Yeah, we will hopefully have a discussion about that a little bit later. But yeah, most of the responses that I've got back have been from my neighbors saying how much they appreciate that their children are now safe from not being killed by cars when they're on their bikes. I've gotten lots of feedback from parents. My kids go to the local school. They have the entire time we've lived here. I'm in regular contact. My wife serves on the PTO of Marie Reed Elementary. I'm in touch with parents all the time. They are especially appreciative. I've gotten a lot of feedback from folks with kids in the neighborhood who are very appreciative that their kids aren't as at risk when they're crossing Columbia Road, because now there are concrete barriers and other things to lessen the distance from one side of the street to the other. You say you've been in this neighborhood for a long time. Columbia Road has always been a traffic mess. That is the reason why this project went forward, is because traffic was so slow along Columbia Road. That is not something new. What's new now, and also trucks have always double parked along Columbia Road. That has been an observed issue that DDOT, came into this project knowing was something that they were trying to solve for. But that is also just part of having a small public space that a lot of people are trying to share. And that is part of the problem that we were trying to solve for here, and to ensure still that pedestrians and bikers are safer when they're going through this corridor, and that our buses move faster and are able to pick up passengers faster. All of these improvements are supposed to do that. We will measure those things when it is done to see whether or not it has actually done that. And then we will be able to reassess from there. So yeah, that's generally been the response that I've gotten. Also, the 2 petitions that went out to the neighborhood on this subject, I will just note that the folks in favor, there were twice as many signers of that petition than the petition against. So no.
Where are you standing? Where are you conducting the petition? I'm around the neighborhood. I work remotely, and so I'm around the neighborhood during daylight hours. I've never seen anyone standing saying, "Hey, like, what do you think about this project that's happening? This construction project that's happening that's like completely transformed the neighborhood and taken away all these parking spots." A lot of those spots that people use, a lot of that traffic is people looking for parking, and now there's even more cars, holding up the neighborhood, holding up the traffic in the neighborhood, looking for spots that have 100 less spots to work with. And how is this like? Do you guys have any concern as to how it's impacting the business district of Adams Morgan? I know it's kind of a hodgepodge, mix up of a neighborhood. It's not the same. It's not as organized as maybe like the Connecticut Avenue, section right around the corner going into DuPont, right? So we weren't able to defend it against this thing happening as well. It's a lot of non-English speaking business owners and whatnot. But I mean, I'm just wondering where you guys I haven't heard any positive feedback like in my comings and goings.
I'm just going to intervene really quickly just so that we maintain Robert's rules. This will make me unpopular, but all questions and comments are technically directed to the chair. So just so we make sure we do that.
That's fine.
That's not to this a general comment, just to make so that we have some general guidelines. Commissioner Laughlin.
I would say as a commissioner that came into, so this is my first term. So when I came into the commission, much of the work and decisions regarding the bus priority plan have been set in place. But I will say coming into it, reading the documentation and looking at the metrics and statistics that DDOT used to sort of put this plan together was really helpful. I don't think they did not go into this blind, and they provided to me metrics and that made me feel more comfortable for the eastern side of Columbia Heights. So like I'm in one of the ANCs, my constituents are in one of the ANCs where we are losing probably the majority of the parking for this project. So we are taking a bit of a bigger brunt, I guess you could say, but it could also be a bigger benefit for the side of Columbia Road because it does have the most congestion. I think as a commission, we'll continue to work with DDOT to provide them feedback to help them sort of hone in and make the project stronger for the community. But unfortunately, because DC as a whole does not have like a system-wide plan for better transit, we're sort of stuck in these little islands of doing it. So it does sort of make it complicated and confusing maybe for pedestrians and walkers and car drivers because it sort of changes from neighborhood to neighborhood. But the feedback I got from the people in my neighborhood was mixed, a little bit of each, but I also had people reach out to me and say, do I need to write someone? I'm scared this project will get killed like the one on Connecticut Avenue. Who do I write? So I had people who were worried it wasn't going to go through at all. I think it's change. Change is sometimes difficult. It's hard to measure, but I do believe that DDOT, and I believe this commission has looked at it using metrics and statistics and being level-minded and trying to meet the needs of this community.
Last question. Do you guys own cars? Do you guys drive? Any of y'all drive?
I do own a car.
I do not own a car or drive.
I do.
Who of you all? So that's 2. Who else?
I'm gonna interject. This isn't a.
I don't think it's relevant.
I'm asking. I'm just wondering where you guys park. Generally, just like that's an honest question, a sincere question. I'm not trying to be facetious. I'm honestly asking.
Actually, 75% of the neighborhood doesn't own a vehicle, Mr. Fenty.
Neighborhood.
75%.
75% of the neighborhood doesn't own a car.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So just to give you a sense of you're now kind of assuming also what our neighborhood does or doesn't have. And would just caution you against that. Do you mind if I ask, Mr. Fenty, do you actually live in Adams Morgan?
I live on Adams Mill, across from Walter Paris.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how long have you lived in the neighborhood for?
I lived in the neighborhood for 6 years.
Okay. Appreciate your feedback. It sounds like you are opposed to the plan and don't think that it's going well, and appreciate you sharing your opinion.
Yeah, no problem. I mean, like I say, I appreciate y'all having this, giving us this chance to share our opinions. It's the only the second one that I've been aware of. So yeah, I mean, outside of living in living in this building, I've spent the majority of my childhood at Fleet Feet Sports on Columbia Road at 1824 Columbia Road. So 1841 Columbia Road, and I'm will watch the neighborhood since I was a kid. So it's not like I'm not familiar, intimately familiar with the neighborhood and the way that it works. So anyway, that's like a little bit more background. But thank you guys for your time. I'm not trying to take up everyone else's question time.
Appreciate it. And what was I going to say? Generally, as chair, just kind of stepping back before taking too much time because we have an item this. Our role as commission, I apologize for anyone who's already well aware of this. Our role of the commission is not to make the rules. We just try to communicate to agencies what we think people are thinking and feeling. Speaking for myself as individual commissioner, I've done a lot of that, including sharing views that I think were fundamentally not relevant to today's discussion, but I've communicated views on this project that I think were fundamentally just incorrect, but they still deserve to be heard because they're on people's minds. And that's our role, is to make sure DDOT hears that and uses the tools they have at their disposal to make decisions. Sometimes they're frustrating, sometimes they're not, but that's what we get paid $0 a year to do. So I know that we've been doing it. I think 2 months ago, 3 months ago, I actually started the meeting and listed off all of the meetings in the last 3 years, 4 years that we've actually discussed this or related issues. It's like 10 or 15 meetings that we've publicly had about this. Always open to people that have suggestions to be able to be more informed of our agendas and our schedules. So if you have ideas, really want more people to be aware, and I appreciate any advance contribution in that sense.
Hello.
Okay. You don't need notice. Appreciate those who have been waiting with their hands up. Marcus, I think you are the next up.
Hello.
Commissioner, we can hear you, but we're listening to Marcus.
Hello. Can you hear me now?
You can't.
Perfect. Hi, my name is Marcos Gonzalez, and I am a former soccer player at Marie Reed, and I've actually presented to the ANC in like 2019 about this issue. So the issue that we've had recently, and some of the players there reached out to me, because we have this recurring problem where for-profit leagues are taking up all the permit time at the field. What we're here to do is to ask for help petitioning the mayor's office and city council to get declared community use time. The idea here is that there's a law called the Ensuring Community Access to Recreational Spaces Act of 2019 that establishes priority use for declared community use time. And it also requires that permitting be conducted in light of declared community use time. But the mayor's office hasn't declared a community use time, so the law is more or less unenforced. The law also came into existence because of the city's use of tax-exempt bond financing for public spaces, which the IRS requires a certain percentage be used for public use if you're getting tax-exempt, if you're using tax-exempt bonds to finance such public property. We've issued FOIA requests to several DC agencies to see whether the funds are actually compliant with the IRS requirements. The point going forward is to ask the mayor's office and I'm forgetting the sub-agency of the mayor's office, the Office of Community Relations, I believe, to get community time established, because the law is already in existence. So the work's already done. It's not seemingly being followed. So what we're hoping to get, and I have some other community members here who'd like to say a word, but what we're hoping to get is a few a few representatives to advocate on our behalf, who we can CC on any correspondence and emails, so you are in the loop and understand as we're advocating for resolution to this issue.
Yeah, thanks for those thoughts. That's definitely something that I can't speak for everyone, of course, and we're switching commissioners in the new year, but definitely send an email. We can talk a bit more and think of options. Sort of related, a few years ago, the commission did something similar regarding the field at Walter Pierce. Wasn't exactly the same issue, but the general idea of petitioning for the use of the field to be modified in a bit. We did it, it worked. I think it could be done here. Just got to discuss specifics and come up with some sort of plan, but appreciate those thoughts.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Yeah. I hope we get more time to play. It's hard to share spaces. Everyone wants things. We didn't even mention pickleball, which makes it even harder to figure out who gets what space and for how long. But I appreciate the challenge ahead.
Perfect. We'll send out some emails then.
Appreciate it. And there's a bunch on ANC1C.org. If you can't find them, they're usually easy to find.
Okay, perfect.
All right. Next up, Kristen Barton from the Adams Morgan Partnership and Business Improvement District. Good evening, Kristen. How are you doing?
Hey, good folks. How are you? I wanted to just do a sorry, hang on. Stuff's popping up here. I just wanted to give a shout out and thanks to all the commissioners who are not continuing on in January. It's been great to work with all of you. So best wishes, and I'm sure we'll see you around the neighborhood. Look forward to collaborating with you in other ways. So so thanks for your service. I had a question if any of you knew if I know some of the seats that no one was running, and there might have been a write-in candidate or two that had won. And I was just curious if you all knew who some of those people might be.
Yeah, I can say that. The results just got, I think, certified on Monday, which was also kind of Tuesday. But basically 8 of the 9 positions will be filled. There was one that did not have a write-in. You have to file paperwork as a write-in candidate. So that's 1CO8 won't have someone to start the year. So they'll go through a cycle of seeing if anyone wants to run for that in a special election. But 2 write-in candidates did run, and one 1CO2 and 1CO7. And the rest had people that were on the ballot and one. So we'll have 8 of 9, 3 of the commissioners here continuing, and the rest stepping aside.
Mm-hmm. So I guess there's 2 seats that are still unfilled. Is that right? Just one or just one? Okay. Okay. But you don't know who might have won the write-in?
Their names are publicly, I can send it. It's on the DCPOE website. They basically just make a PDF that has all the names of who won. It's a bit old fashioned, and some people were frustrated because they didn't do it. But I can send that to you as well. It's available publicly.
Okay. All right. That'd be great. Yeah. Because I guess I was looking for it. Maybe I wasn't looking in the right place. So that'd be helpful. Thank you. Yeah. So updates from me. I think a couple of you came to our tree lighting that we had for the holiday display in the plaza before Thanksgiving. So it's off to a good start. We're getting a lot of social media attention to it. So the other thing that's getting a lot of media attention that kind of surprised us is the new pizza box cans that we installed. That was kind of a surprise. We replaced the big belly trash cans. We had 2 of those that DDOT had installed as part of the streetscape in 2011. Those had outlived their life cycle. They were beat up and not really working anymore and really filthy. So we replaced those with 2 containers to just kind of hold pizza boxes, because pizza boxes don't really fit in any of the standard Victor Stanley products. So we thought we'd try this. They're not rat proof. It's just a way of organizing them in a better way. And our team empties them every day. So so, rats are an issue, but the pizza boxes won't be around for more than a few hours. Anyhow, it got a tremendous amount of media attention, and we were, pleasantly surprised, right? Just, didn't expect it. So, but we're hoping that they're used and used well. So, and if it works, we'll put more of them around the neighborhood. We started out with 2 because they're about $1,200 each. But you know, we'll see how it goes. But if anybody has feedback on the pizza box containers, you know, let us know. We'd like to hear from people. And then in terms of our programming for the rest of December, we have 2 events coming up the next 2 Thursdays, so tomorrow and then also on the 12th. And that is, we're calling them Snowy Thursdays, and we'll have some holiday carolers around the plaza decorations from 6 to 7. So that's tomorrow and then December 12th in the plaza in front of the bank. So, and we also this year put together a holiday gift guide to kind of generate some ideas of how to shop local for the holidays. So that's also on our website if you'd like to get some, you know, get some inspiration. And the farmers market, it's ending on December 21st for the season. They usually end right before Christmas. And they are doing Christmas trees again this year. If you want a tree that's bigger than 8 feet, they ask you to reserve it ahead of time. But if not, you can probably just go on Saturday and pick one out. And Potter's House is doing a holiday bazaar next Saturday, the 14th, from 10 to 2. That's another opportunity to buy gifts locally. And I think that's about it from me. So yeah, a little bit of our December programming. Excuse me.
I appreciate the update. I know you all year-round work very hard, and this is one of those periods included, so we appreciate all of it. It makes the neighborhood look really beautiful too. It's a lot of hard work.
Yeah, great. Thank you.
There's one comment I'll just address, just as in the Q&A, regarding the bus shelters on Columbia, how there's been a delay in communication from DDOT on when the bus shelters may be replaced with the new locations and what that might look like. I don't know why they're not responding about that. They've usually been pretty communicative, so hopefully we hear soon. I do recall that something with bus shelters often gets complicated because the city depends on advertising revenue to locate them, and it's a bit of a frustrating dynamic that's created that potentially disadvantages neighborhoods where advertising is less valuable monetarily, and that's unfortunate, but that's also not something the ANC can really do more than just say, hey, stop that and give people bus shelters. So hopefully we'll have the opportunity. Well, hopefully we don't have to do that, but we'll see how it goes going forward. And hopefully there's bus shelters, because no one likes sitting in the rain or snow when it's cold out, especially without cover. All right, so we have a lot of things on the consent agenda. That's not, because it's a consent agenda, it's not really up for discussion. So if anyone has any last reservations and wants to move one off to the regular agenda, feel free. But just for transparency, I'll just go through it really quick. Just our regular minutes. We had some weird issue. I'm not sure why a previous quarterly financial report wasn't reflected in our minutes, but we just need to amend that so that they'll give us our money from the Office of ONCs. So I think that's hopefully a simple fix. An application for a grant came through asking for support. It's a kind of standard thing that we've gotten before, and I think they'd get it without our support, but it's nice to show support to the festival center. Andy's Pizza is requesting a change in hours. I think the other signee on the settlement agreement, Colorado Citizens Association, has already agreed to that, and they're often the kind of leading voice on those types of things in terms of opposition to change, and they were in favor of the change. So I think that's probably no brainer. And also, like I said earlier, just so that we have something officially decided for our next meeting in January, just scheduling an official new term, new commission's first meeting on January 8th. This consent agenda, so if there's no problems, it'll be adopted. So be it. Well, I guess Commissioner Foskany, go ahead.
Just given that we didn't get a chance to consider the issue in committee for Andy's Pizza, I wanted to just move it off so we could open it up for discussion and then take a vote, if you don't mind.
Yeah, doesn't even matter what I think. If one commissioner wants it, that's what I agree. All right, so we'll do that. Any other questions or issues? All right, so we'll move that consent agenda is adopted, just the same as, I guess, an 8-0 vote or 7-0 vote in this case. So two items now. First, neither came with committee support, but first is Department of Transportation's notice of intent to install a commercial loading zone on the east side of the 1800 block of Columbia Road. I think it's around where like Through Line, which used to be called MAGA, around there it is. This didn't really come from a committee. I don't have much of an introduction, so if anyone wants to jump in with thoughts, that's fine. But I do know that this is directly in the heart of the SMD I represent. And kind of like we were talking about earlier, DDOT has basically, I think, taken the approach of spending a few years studying the issue and doing outreach. Of course, the outreach is never satisfactory to everybody, but we push for some. And trying to see how it plays off in the real world as people are doing things and trying to make adjustments as it goes. And I think this is one of those adjustments because there is need for space for delivery trucks, like it's undeniable. And that's one of the risks of having more rigid bike lane protections is that people can't double park in it, and especially if it's large trucks that can back up traffic. And people don't care about rules when they're driving, and they will veer into oncoming traffic, and it's obviously a hazard. The advantage is that I know a lot of cyclists that didn't really cycle before, and now they're saying, I feel safe cycling. So that's one of the gives and takes. But this seems to be an attempt by DDOT to address that need because, contrary to some views, the business owners have been listened to quite a bit, and they do have frustrations that I think in many cases are valid, which is how do they get their stuff in a way that is compatible with the safety of the neighborhood. So I optimistically think that this is an attempt to bring that into consideration. Commissioner Palskini.
Thanks. Sorry, I was just in the Q&A. Yes, I think your observations on this are correct. So my understanding is, the original 95% plan that we got from DDOT actually included way more load unload zones along the entire Columbia Road stretch. And there was a lot of pushback from the bid and from local businesses, and they asked for more paid parking, fewer load unload zones along the entire stretch. And then the final plan that was released in the NOI had many fewer commercial load unload zones. And there are two stretches where that seems to be having like a pretty major impact. And I've been out walking Columbia Road literally every single day, sometimes 2 to 3 times a day, in order to kind of watch all of this and take note of it. There have been several business owners and other folks that have put videos on our local email listserv that have shown what I've also seen is that along the stretch on Columbia Road between 16th and Calorama, there is a lot of there are a lot of trucks that are parking along that section to load into the businesses along that stretch. And I don't know why those businesses are getting deliveries from huge like 18-wheelers in the city, but they are. That can also be changed and should be changed by the businesses and their delivery companies because it's not appropriate. And they should be issued tickets to the extent that they are parking illegally. And I've spoken with DPD and the council member and others to get stricter enforcement along this area. But also I think it shows that there is more of a need for commercial load unload zones, especially along that block. I spoke with Kevin Harrison about it. DDOT has had observers out all the time, kind of looking to see how things are going. They agreed that there appears to be a lot of violations along that stretch. And so I think this is kind of first attempt to kind of tweak this plan a little bit and make sure that it's actually working, is to create this commercial load unload zone in between 16th Street for about a block southwest along Columbia. to try to fix some of this, create more space for trucks to load and unload there, so that they're not blocking traffic. In the past, just to be clear, like what happened was these trucks would park in the bike lane. And it would pose a health and safety risk to bikers. It also posed a health and safety risk to pedestrians. And that is, in fact, exactly where a pedestrian was killed, Nina Larson. And that is part of the reason that we started this entire project, was because of those risks along that block. In the past, we were just okay with the fact that it put bikers' lives at risk and pedestrian lives at risk. And now what's happening is cars are putting each other at risk, and now people are noticing. So I just want to note kind of the irony of the fact that people are now only noticing once it's putting cars at risk and not putting human lives and bikers' lives at risk. So I will just kind of note that irony that it is now being noticed when it's putting cars at risk and not necessarily when it's putting human lives at risk. So that is, yeah, that's right, the 1800 block. So that's my understanding of kind of what's happening along that stretch now, and the NOI is an attempt to fix it.
I appreciate that. You reminded me of one thing. So as commissioner represents the area, and also commissioner has been on multiple terms, I think at the time that this project was like formally presented by DDOT in kind of like document form was at the end of 2022. I forget the day, but it was like almost exactly to the day where the bid had a few commissioners come in to discuss what many business owners were concerned with, which are some of the things we've discussed for many months. And I was actually one of the commissioners who said, yeah, if you look at the numbers of parking for the patrons of those businesses, that is a sharp decline, and that deserves to be addressed, because that was really was staggering, which is not, you know, a popular view with the bike lobby, etc. But it was one I took because I think it is important. And of course, we don't get to decide that. And even the engineers who study for years that stuff don't always get the ultimate call, but it's something that, at least on my part, been trying to advocate for, which is not easy. Like I think it was Commissioner Foskey, he said, like finite space, lots of different people who want different uses of that space. Not everyone can always get what they want. It's not always simple. Commissioner Foskey, your hand's back up.
Sorry, I just wanted to correct the record that everywhere where I said 18th Street or 16th Street earlier, I meant 18th Street. Sorry, it's been a very long work day.
It's all good. Commissioners, any other thoughts, questions on this matter? From what I can tell, I haven't like looked at it too many times, but it seems like a relatively simple proposal, just one stretch of that segment of the roadway being converted. So I don't think it's as massive as past things we've seen in the past. And of course, everyone has access to a document. Commissioner Laughlin.
I guess just to clarify, so I'm looking at, so they said to accommodate delivery demand, the loading zone will be 84 feet in length and operate Monday through Saturday, 7 a.m. to 6:30 p.m. with a 30-minute limit. So will adding this in remove some of is there already parking there right now?
I believe so. I forget the exact.
Yeah, there is. So would it temporarily remove, so the parking so if they add this in, then it would only be for loading during that time, and then after that time, it would be available for parking again?
Yeah, that's the
Okay.
plan. Which was the original plan too, was that the
Right.
commercial load unload would only be during the daytime hours when we know the highest peak delivery time is, and then it would switch back over to allow paid parking for all of the restaurants and businesses and everything along
Right.
18th Street that want that kind of parking. So that would be the plan here, and it's only a small stretch of that block. It's not the entire block.
Okay. I guess just for so in addition to the ANC, is this an opportunity for residents and constituents in the area to send comments to DDOT? Is that what they're also requesting? Okay, I wanted to make that one clear to myself, and also for anybody who's interested in this and wants to send comment. This is a time that is open, and we encourage the community to send comments into DDOT.
Yeah, that's a good point. On that, I mean, a notice of intent is, I think by law, something that they have to provide so there is an opportunity for community input and not just commissions, but including commissions. And I mean, on that note as well, I mean, as a commission tonight, we can choose to say some sort of position and to formally vote on that and send that, but also individuals in the community, basically anyone that has a voice and an email address can, or a phone, I think, can contact them and say, hey, this is what I think. As a commission, we're free to do something. Like most matters, we don't have any obligation to do so, but in many cases, it's probably a good idea to try to take some position. So I guess in the next several minutes, that's what we'll do, is decide if someone has a motion and see if we want to take a position. But yeah, that's a good point, because it's not just commissions that have a say in this, although we're a more, I guess, visible one. All right, commissioners, any other thoughts before we get to committee members? Looks like we have one hand up. The other Mr. Fenty that's attending tonight. Welcome.
Hello, can you hear me?
Ian, how are you doing?
Yes.
Fine, thank you. Good evening to everyone. Happy holidays. So I just wanted to, just comment on the proposed relief that DDOT has proposed for the 1800 block of Columbia Road for the loading. And so the Columbia Road RPB, I opposed it from the beginning, under the grounds that its design would be less safe for all users. I think that is apparent now that it's 90% done. You can see that it's less safe for all users, cyclists, drivers, pedestrians, everyone, all the stakeholders on Columbia Road. The attempt here to sort of retrofit loading into the 1800 block of Columbia Road, we've already lost half of our parking. And so what this would do is remove half of what is left. If you look at the road design in the 1800 block, the proposed loading zone is across the street from the businesses that the delivery vehicles service. So the delivery personnel will still have to cross Columbia Road, cross the 2 lanes of traffic, cross the bike lanes in order to make their deliveries. Because of the pedestrian shelter that has been installed at Columbia and Mintwood, the way the road is designed now, the large vehicles that make deliveries to the businesses on Columbia Road, the restaurants and the bars and the liquor stores, those vehicles will not be able to use that loading zone because it's sort of like a parking space. So those large vehicles can't parallel park. So they're still going to pull up and block the travel lane, causing vehicles to go around them into oncoming traffic. It's shocking to me that Commissioner Falaschini is surprised that those vehicles make deliveries in that block, since like they have always made it in that block. And we pointed out in our opposition to the project that that would be an issue. And so the fact that he didn't know that was going to be an issue is certainly very frustrating and disappointing for those of us who have been speaking about this project. Currently, the delivery vehicles park in the bike lane anyway. They park on top of the flexi sticks and on top of the concrete barriers. They just drive on top of it because they're truck drivers and they have a job to do. And so they show up to do their job. And it doesn't make any sense for people who are coming into the neighborhood, like what's going on. And so they just stop and make their deliveries. The mail trucks park in the bike lane. So it's not any different. It's just less usable space in the corridor. It's more rigid and less flexible. And so it's less safe. And no one, ever said that Columbia Road was perfect. We put forward proposals to make it safer, particularly at that at that crosswalk where Nina was killed. We wanted a raised platform crosswalk there, so it would slow traffic in addition to the yellow lights. It didn't, what they have done is not making it safer. And that was sort of our response. It's like, yeah, it's not perfect, but like this makes it worse. But you know, my comment is really directed toward specifically toward the commission in terms of lobbying on this proposal from DDOT to put this loading zone into 1800 block of Columbia Road. I would point out that we've already lost half of our parking. This loading zone will remove half of what is left, and it will not alleviate the problem because these large vehicles, the Amazon trucks, the delivery trucks for the restaurants, the 18-wheelers that come in and deliver beer and alcohol to the liquor stores in the neighborhood, they will not be able to use that loading zone. And so they're still going to be in the middle of the street. So, you know, I don't know, you know what I mean? Yeah, I don't know if anyone has any questions or comments for me.
Appreciate that. I have a question and a comment. Comment, you mentioned advocating for, I think there are table speed humps in that area. This commission actually did, just for like general information purposes, we did, I think, support a resolution in favor of that. Must have been December of 2021, January 2022. I think Commissioner or Councilmember Nadeau also supported that. It's unfortunate that hasn't happened, but that's something that at least we've discussed formally. Question, I know you spend a lot of time and invest a lot of energy in this specific stretch of 1800 block of Columbia. Just like genuinely speaking, I'm really curious, where do you think like deliveries need to happen? And like, I totally agree, truck drivers are not going to think about the nuances of neighborhood parking dynamics too deeply. I get that, respect it kind of. Where do you think a good spot for delivery trucks to go would be? Like, do you have any recommendations on a stretch of this road that like, in an even an ideal sense, like where that would be a good fit? Or is that something that is kind of hard to define for you?
Well, thank you for the question. So, I mean, like, again, you know, we were for more flexible road use and you know, tweaking of the original design and not this sort of radical redesign. Part of the problem is that we have these sort of 3-foot buffer zones on the bike lanes on either side of the street. And so in a 50-foot road, you lose 6 feet of usable road. And so like we felt like if you wanted to put PBLs in, they should sort of be double lanes a la 15th Street so that the lanes themselves would be wider and then therefore safer for the cyclists to use. The narrowness of the lanes on as currently configured on Columbia Road make them less safe for cyclists. I'm a cyclist. I ride my bicycle to work every day, and you know, I find those narrow, long stretches of road where someone could walk across in front of me and delivery vehicles are using it and all kinds of stuff. I find that sort of an unsafe environment to cycle. I don't have enough what I call white space, enough reaction time to kind of react to different things that kind of come up. And so like if you look at like the PBLs constructed on 15th Street, they put the 2 lanes side by side, so you get sort of like a 10-foot lane instead of a 5-foot lane. So like if the bicycle lane was on one side of the street, then you could put the loading zones on the other side of the street. In the 1800 block of Columbia Road, the majority of the businesses that are getting serviced by the delivery vehicles are on the, I guess you'd call it the west side of Columbia at that point. So I would say that it would be better if the loading was on the west side of Columbia Road, but there's sort of nowhere for it to go now because like everything is sort of shifted to the west side of the street, and you just got the PBL, no parking, then you've got the 2 travel lanes, and then you got, so it's all sort of backwards in that block. So yeah,
So I'll rephrase my question just to keep it kind of succinct. If
yeah.
like in this scenario, if there was a hypothetical proposal to put a loading zone on that block on the other side of the street, should it be just that trucks unofficially park on a bike lane, that the bike lane is removed, or that parking is removed, or something else?
Yeah, so I mean, if I was gonna, redraw it and we were gonna still include the PBLs, which I just don't think are a good fit on Columbia Road. It's not that I'm against PBLs. I just don't think they're a good fit for such densely populated, narrow corridors that have like that type of commercial and residential mix. It's just not a good mix. But if I was to do it, then I would put the loading and the parking on the west side of the street and have the PBLs on the east side of the street and put them together, if that seems like a clear response.
I think so. I appreciate that. Commissioner Foskin.
Yeah, that actually is something that we considered was the two bike lanes on one side of the road, a la 15th, as opposed to separating them across. But because Columbia Road splits on the other side of 16th Street, DDOT didn't want to do the two on the same side of the road and then have them split into one ways once they got to the other side of 16th. It just would have made for a very unsafe intersection at 16th Street for bicycles, like trying to figure out how to get across the road. That was the reason why they didn't want to do the two together. Honestly, I think that's my preferred form of bike lane, and the ones that I think have been the most successful in DC have been those. The Ninth Street bike lane is fantastic. Like you say, I think it is actually a safer form. 15th is kind of, I mean, it's so busy, that bike lane. Like clearly, I think other people feel the same way. It's a very safe and good way of getting folks back and forth. But that was the reason why they decided not to do it on the same side of the road on Columbia Road. I just want
It
to,
also, I don't know if you can still hear me. It also, gets you 3 feet more of road because you don't have to have two buffer zones.
that's right. Nope, that's totally right. And, it could be something that in the future, we look at this and just decide, we'll deal with whatever that intersection is that needs to happen on 18th Street because it is a better way to design it. And so maybe in the future, that is a way to actually reshape it along the stretch in order to buy an extra 3 feet of road space for other uses. I mean, that is a possibility for, the future as we kind of look at this and decide what's being successful and what isn't successful. I don't want to assume that this is the way that it will be forever. If we learn that this actually isn't working super well, then that should be something that we're all willing to confront and figure out like new ways of doing this in the future. So I want that to like remain a possibility and something that DDOT and the commission is open to. I do I recognize I know that there are large trucks that do deliveries around DC. There do not have to be 18-wheelers that are delivering beer to our neighborhood. That doesn't have to be the case. Like businesses can make requests with the companies that are supplying them for various size vehicles. They can make it really clear to suppliers that only certain sizes will work in the neighborhood. And now that the infrastructure has changed, hopefully the businesses along that block will start to have those conversations. And as their drivers are ticketed over and over and over and over again, hopefully it will also make enough of a financial incentive for them to change their behavior as well. So we are in the early stages of this, and I think there's an opportunity for businesses to change their behavior, for the suppliers to change their behavior along that stretch, and to request different types of delivery trucks in the neighborhood in order to change how that works. And also to just straight up put a ban on 18-wheelers stopping along that stretch. They're clearly too big. They don't fit in any of the load or unload zones. Those simply shouldn't be used
I
to
mean,
deliver along there.
that just seems to me to be so disconnected from the reality that we live with every day. That view that they these oh these trucks, they shouldn't be there. So I mean, like, so that we can have like these protected bike lanes that like I mean it's just absurd. You know I don't understand how you can sort of have this. I mean, have you as a business, you know what I mean? I don't tell, you know, I order product. I don't tell the, you know what I mean? I have no say as to like what kind of vehicle it shows up in. It's just I don't it's sort of mind-boggling, you know, to have that attitude. We pointed it out from the beginning that this would be the problem. And so like, you know, we were, you know, our concerns were dismissed and now they're right there for everyone to see. And I don't know, your response is like those vehicles, well, they shouldn't be there. You know what I mean? Big vehicles like that shouldn't be in the city. I mean, this is how the supply chain works. You know what I mean? What are they supposed to do? You know what I mean? Like the, they're supposed to stop at some kind of junction facility at the city line and unload into smaller vehicles. And you know what I mean? Like, who's going to pay for that? I mean, that just, you know, like, what are you talking about? That doesn't make any sense.
So that
I'm
is
sorry.
exactly what I mean. And yes, it does make a ton of sense. And yes, if I have to put the safety of our community ahead of letting 18-wheelers drive into the neighborhood to drop things off when they could just as easily do it in a truck
Just
half
as
the
easily, just as easily. Just as easily.
This is devolving into what the
Okay,
committee.
no, that's fine. I just wanted, you know, so anyway,
Okay,
I would ask the commission to consider as far as the loading zone. I don't, you know, I think it's gonna take away more parking. I think it'll be more harmful to businesses in the corridor. I already very concerned about the impact that what has already happened is having on my business. And I think it's just going to remove more parking, and I don't think it'll solve the problem. So as far as that may inform, you know, how you advise DDOT on the subject, yeah, uh, that's my position.
Definitely appreciate the thoughts and the conversation. And I need some new running shoes, so I'll come in and have you take a look. See how's that sound? There's one question in the Q&A that has come up. DDOT, if there's just DC government in general, and a plan for enforcement on who is illegally parking or using a lot of these spaces that we're discussing. Someone else can jump in if they have an answer. I think this is something we've discussed with them before, and their answer is basically, yeah, enforcement, good, we want to do that. Specific plan, haven't really heard something. I don't know if that's something that's typically given. I don't know like the parameters for being able to provide something like that. But I don't know if there's any specific thing in place besides whatever the DC law is. There are people whose job it is to go out and enforce that. Sometimes it happens, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it's because of laziness. Sometimes it's just because of lack of staff or being overwhelmed, etc. I don't know if anyone has other thoughts. Commissioner Foskini.
Yeah, I made requests for increased enforcement along Columbia Road with directly with DDOT and also with our council member, and both of them said that they have also asked DPW to increase enforcement for the next few months while we kind of get folks settled into new rhythms along Columbia Road. So there should be increased enforcement that, if it hasn't already started, should be started really soon. Because the request has been made by both DDOT and also the council member.
I appreciate that. All right. Any other questions, comments on this matter, commissioners, those in attendance? Commissioner Laughlin.
So I guess on that note, whatever comments we as a commission send in on this, we should really emphasize the importance of enforcement of the parking rules in that area, just to sort of help out those businesses and also to open up that parking for residents when it's when it's not being used as a loading zone. So I think we just have to keep hammering away at the enforcement component of that, since that'll be crucial to making the project successful long term.
I appreciate those thoughts, especially as someone who very literally dived out of the way of, well, not literally, avoided cars that were parking just on top of those flexi posts. Like I've seen it before. It's not specific to Columbia or this project, but sometimes it's just like, I get it that you want to park somewhere, but seriously. Commissioner Foskini, I saw your hands back up. All right, Commissioner Michelson, Horowitz, your hand was up earlier. Anything you want us to add? Just checking.
Yeah, I was going to ask Mr. Fenty about the specific impacts on his business. I was just curious if he has data about the number of customers that have changed, between those periods. It feels, I was hoping that there might be some data that we could draw on.
Mr.
Well,
Fenny.
the project is too new, you know what I mean? Like all of you, when Philip asked you about like what's your feedback in the neighborhood, and you say, oh, 70% of people love it. That's just not, so what we get is sort of anecdotal, people frustrated with their inability to park, people frustrated with what's going on with the traffic out front. It's too new to kind of like, really draw comparisons. And, there's so many different factors that, honestly, affect your business. And so like, it's sort of like, it's larger trends, global trends, city trends, it's all kinds of things that affect your business. And so you kind of, it's like vitamins, you'd have to kind of like go back and do it again without taking the vitamins to know if they like made you feel any better or not, So it's hard to measure. We have enjoyed a tremendous amount of community support in our 40 years there, and people do make a concerted effort to support us, and we always appreciate that. And we hope that they will continue to do so. And, we like to think positive and hope that it'll be great and hope it'll be better for us, and that isn't, really at the heart of our concern. Honestly, the very heart of our concern is that we feel like the project is less safe for all users. And so, we just don't want to see someone get hurt. We had a tragedy on our block. We felt that tragedy. We don't want to see anything like that happen again. We put forth recommendations that we thought would help the situation. We feel like this makes it worse. And so that's really the heart of our concern. But as far as how it has affected our business, it's too early to tell. I am concerned.
And my other question, what portion of your customers do you think drive into to park in the neighborhood to go to your store, or I'm just curious,
About
like
25%.
Sorry, 25%?
About 25%.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good to know.
And there was one other point that I lost it again, but yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, sorry.
I appreciate that your comments are much broader than the NOI. As specifically to this NOI, I'm getting the sense that you don't think it would make a problem worse in your view, rather than alleviating a problem.
Yeah, correct. So like I say, I think that it it would probably get used by just people parking in general anyway. Oh, that was the other point that I wanted to make, is that things need to make sense to people, right? Just sort of on an intuitive level. If you're relying on enforcement to make people comply with something, uh, then like it's just not going to be successful. The majority of law is based on compliance because it makes sense to people. Enforcement is not really the driver of human behavior, culture is. And so, if you are going to say, okay, well, we're going to make a situation that doesn't make any sense to people, and then we're going to like drive compliance through enforcement, what you're doing is you're pushing a police state down our throat in Adams Morgan. And that is not going to be helpful either. To have like, like the bad old days when you had like these like roving crews of ticket writers, and everybody was like afraid to come to the neighborhood because they're going to get ticketed and towed. That's not a very, inviting business environment to have people come to either. And so if your fallback is like, well, there's no place for these vehicles to park, so we need to get, the cops down there writing tickets on everybody. Yeah, that's just not a very good solution in my opinion.
Thank you.
Appreciate your thoughts. Thanks for the questions, Commissioner. All right, so discuss this a bit. I don't have a motion to make. I'm still kind of thinking what a good approach might be here. And we don't have to take any official action, but there is a notice of intent period that we have the option to comment within. So if anyone has.
This is only regarding NOI.
Correct. Because at least the way I see it, it's one of those situations, at least how this conversation is developed too, where like very typical. The real thing that everyone, well, most people would want would probably be impossible, or at least there's not a budget for it. So we're looking for some sort of other fix, which may or may not put things in the right direction. And it's hard to tell. Because as speaking as a commissioner for the area, like the idea of loading trucks not blocking lanes of traffic, so there's one lane that cars are going through. I think that's a good thing. Should it be should we support a short-term fix or oppose this or taking a position in favor of maybe some sort of other suggestion? I don't know if that would be useful in this moment. Of course, concrete's not permanent, so it can always be removed, but it's also expensive to do. So I do want to be aware of that as well, because they have spent a bunch of time doing this. So I guess I'm kind of thinking out loud if I want to make a motion, but if someone has wants to beat me to it, go ahead. Or if we don't take one, that's also as well. The date for the NOI comments is January 7th. So as it currently stands, the next commission's meeting in 2025 is the day after that. So sometimes they accept stuff afterwards, but as you can, as it's written, that would be after that we wouldn't be able to take an official stance before that period's up. So this would be our only real opportunity without some sort of shifting things. And also, I guess one other comment, regardless of what we take a position, it's still possible for something to happen regardless if the ANC doesn't support it. DDOT can still say, well, we did the thing, we're going to try it. So that's an option as well. And without a motion on the floor, I guess that is what we'll see what will happen. Any further comments on this matter, commissioners? All right, so appreciate all
Well,
the comments.
actually, let me ask you a question. And I got kicked out of the meeting. So something going on my end. And you may have said this already, but how did this come about? How did this proposal of the loading zone come about? I know it has to do with safety and such,
Yeah.
but do you know what I'm saying? Like,
probably read between the lines. Like I don't think DDOT announces a motive for their specific.
okay,
but it seems pretty obvious that they created that first phase of this bus priority project, which is from Connecticut to 18th Street Northwest. And as they said they were going to do, they would implement it and observe and make modifications along the way if they seem appropriate. And this is one of those modifications basically because during work hours on weekdays, for the most part, trucks have to park somewhere to deliver stuff. They used to just park over the bike lanes, but it's harder to do that now. So they've been going in traffic and people don't have the patience. And also it's a narrow road because of that. So there's cars weaving around and this is a way to try to veer some of that parking into more proper spot, which would be designated from 7 a.m. to 6:30 p.m. Monday through Saturday for delivery trucks. But those same spaces, as was kind of alluded to earlier, those same spaces would also technically be marked, like the painting and signs would be also marked for other types of parking. So it'd be ambiguous in terms of how it physically appears. So people that would be legally parking that spot at one time would be illegally parking at others. I don't know exactly how the signage would look, but that's just another thing to consider. Commissioner Boschini.
My personal observation, so first off, that block isn't working right now, as is, and something needs to change. So I agree with the fact that DDOT is trying to fix it. Second point is, my observation of walking up and down that block, I don't know how many times over the past several months, is that there are plenty of trucks that are parking illegally that would fit into this commercial load unload zone that DDOT is proposing. Not all of them, granted, and I agree with Mr. Fenty. There are a couple of 18-wheelers that seem to be parking pretty regularly along that stretch, but those are actually kind of the minority of the trucks that I'm seeing. Most of the trucks that I'm seeing are smaller, can back into a space and could back into a space, and several of them are food trucks that are actually delivering to restaurants on the side of the street where the commercial load and unload zone is being proposed. So I think this has the opportunity to potentially fix the problem. We will only know that if we try it. What's working right now doesn't work. We know that. So we should, I agree with DDOT's attempt to try to fix the problem along that block right now by trying something new. Thus, I support the project. Thus, I would like to propose that the ANC write a letter in support of the NOI, at least to give it a try and see what works. That's my take.
I'll second the motion. Any further comments or discussion points on this, commissioners? Yeah, all right, so we discussed a lot.
I would just add, I guess, Commissioner, if we could get feedback on how they plan to do enforcement or education on it, like if I
Sure.
also agree with what Mr. Fenty said too as well. Like we don't want to make it a police zone either on that. So it's one enforcement, but also to what extent education. I don't if that's either working with the businesses, like how DDOT could work with the businesses on how those zones will be set up and like get feedback on that. It's like it's new, it's a new concept. I think it'll be helpful for our community, but also, we need to continue to work with DDOT and get DDOT to work better with the community to get better buy-in, because that is what will help it make it work. So to what extent we can put that in our comments, and encourage and offer our support to help do some of that education, would be what I would also voice that we should include.
Yeah, I have a comment and a suggestion. The comment,
Yeah.
like we said, this isn't like if this were to be implemented, it's not permanent, of course, and it seems like it'd be really relatively easy to reverse if it just came to show that it was terrible. I don't think the cost, like the collateral damage, seems to be relatively minimal compared to everything else going on. Suggestion, like we could make a simple, like ideally we have the text in front of us, but I don't think it's necessary because it'll be pretty simple letter if we send something, basically to include in, I guess I'd move to amend that we would send a support and also in the same letter have a line saying, and we request that DDOT formally presents their enforcement plans to ANC 1C sometime in the first half of 2025 or something like that. How's that sound? Anyone have an opposition to that amendment? If not, it gets adopted. Okay, that sounds good. So I'll ask for both those things and hopefully we can get them, because I definitely agree, making sure it's always hard to get quote unquote perfect community input because people are busy and it's hard and we get very little money to actually advocate for community input, and it's frustrating, and the agencies that have money don't always do it, but hopefully that can be one way to get some of them, because yeah, I don't think anyone wants it to be turned into a police zone because it's stressful, but we also want people to be parking in ways that put people's lives in jeopardy. So balancing act. All right, any last thoughts, commissioners? All right, so I'll put it to a vote. The motion on the floor is to submit a letter of support for this notice of intent to create a loading zone on the 1800 block of Columbia Road with a request for a formal presentation of enforcement plans for that stretch of road from the Department of Transportation to this commission in the coming calendar year. We'll say first 6 months of the next calendar year, try to put it something like that. We'll see if they don't legally have to do it, but it's at least nice to try, right? All right, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? The motion passes 7-0. All right, we have one other item on tonight's agenda, and it is Andy's Pizza. They requested a bit ago, I forget when, they requested to basically modify their settlement agreement, which is something we did, I want to say 2 years ago, like right when they moved into the space on 18th Street. Basically just want an extra hour so that they're able to sell alcohol, which I think is in compliance with most of the businesses immediately next to them. Colorado Citizens Association is also a party on the settlement agreement, and they said yes to it already, so we just hadn't formally gotten to it, and it's been busy with an election and with Thanksgiving and the world on fire, et cetera, and we probably should have gotten to this earlier, but it's okay. So it didn't come from a committee. I guess I'll just move that we support this. Can I get a second for discussion?
Second.
Commissioner Laughlin. All right, any questions, comments, anything else? Commissioner Falskine, this is in your SMD if you have anything you want to add.
Andy's just been a good operator. So I trust them around, saying that really it's, they'll continue to be a good operator in the space. And biggest thing for them is just making a little bit of, I think, extra money that time of night when people are coming out of the bars and hungry. So getting more food and folks that time of night is not a bad thing.
I agree, and that's usually what these things are, is just an attempt to get the margins and revenues up a little bit. From personal experience, Andy's is kind of like a sobering zone in the middle of the night. Like people go in there to kind of calm down. So I don't think that the ability to sell a couple of Modelos or whatever is going to have much of, if any, adverse impact. It could have actually an opposite impact or probably neutral. So that's my personal opinion. Any other questions, comments, commissioners? All right, motion on the floor is to support a change, or I guess to make it, to sign on to a change, an amendment to an existing settlement agreement for Andy's Pizza. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Do we want to open it up for public comment before we take a vote?
That's a good point. Forget that I just said that. There's no hands up, but if anyone in the public wants to.
That was the whole reason why I moved it off the consent agenda.
That's a very fair point. I just rushed myself. If anyone in here does have words on this matter, this would be the time. Going once, going twice. All right. Let's have a real vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? The motion passes 7-0. And with that concludes our 2023-2024 term for ANC 1C. Appreciate it. Lovely discussion tonight. Hope everyone has a safe and warm evening. And Happy New Year. Well, besides the committee meeting next week.